Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Look, today we have so much to cover. I want to talk about the ocean collapse. That's what I wanted to talk about because I don't think people know how serious this is. But then we started looking at the day's news, and we've got EOs that we've got to catch up with. And we just spent the last hour listening to Donald Trump take down Davos. Oh, it was grand. And I think that's where Douglas will want to start. So I'll turn it over, and honey, stay out of the weeds.
Oh, man. Well, here's the deal. As Tyler kept pointing out, Betsy, as we were listening to Trump, the idiot people who they put on the panel who were their best and brightest, who asked stupid questions. But the guy basically, he said 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 times, "Oh, we have already prepared for you coming next year. Oh, next year, we're ready for you. Oh, next year, we can't believe that you're not here now." But next year, you see what happened was, remember, Davos, the World Economic Forum, is the last secret brotherhood standing that is an economic mafia. The British Knights of Malta are really the top dogs through the Pilgrims Society in terms of economics. So the Pilgrims Society really controls the World Economic Forum. That's why they don't even have to show up there. But basically, it took over for the Vatican's Knights of Malta and the Bank of the Vatican Bank, as well as the Babylonian Radhanites that went up through, the court Jews of all of Europe, okay? That's who those people are. This is an old tradition, and Trump just bitch slapped them so hard, he flushed them down the toilet. They are now inconsequential.
Well, and remember, all that goes back to the Venetian and the Doge. That name Doge really irritates the hell out of me.
The fake Jews on the Rialto in Venice, starting their first bank named after the Banco family in St. Mark's Plaza, but in St. Mark's Cathedral. That's in Europe where it really took root. But anyway, the point is that's who these people are, okay? And don't forget that Klaus Schwab is a direct lineage of a man who Hitler admired the most for creating his weapons for him in Germany and then crossing over, I think, into Switzerland. Now, first off, Trump shouldn't go there because that's collusion with economic mafia.
Terrorists.
And these are terrorists. These are economic terrorists. And he bitch slapped the head of the Bank of America so bad. He said, you've stopped serving conservatives. That's bad. That's really bad. You have to stop that.
You and Jamie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he basically put these people in their place, and they ask really naive, stupid questions, and he basically he dissed them all. And if we were going to go over just what's happened in the last 24 hours since we've given another Betsy and Thomas update, and remember, Thomas pain in the ass of the globalists. The World Economic Forum are the globalists. They're the transnationalists. They are what used to be the Bohemian Grove, the trilateralists. The Council on Foreign Relations, all those have collapsed. They're inconsequential, and no one of any significance goes there. And remember that a Jamie Dimon or the head of any of the big banks, they're all British agents, okay? They really don't know nothing. And here's Trump. That's the reason that they had to ask such stupid, naive questions, that their questions themselves were so naive that they should be fired for their stupidity. But that just shows that they don't run anything. They're told, just like the biggest news I saw today, which I want to jump to, because this is what caused Betsy to say we should give an update, is that there's an article, and this is the first time I've ever seen in mainstream media, which is, in this case, I think it was on Breitbart, so that's like supposed to be conservative, or on Fox News or anywhere else, ever, Alex Jones, anywhere, any place, anytime, anybody who tells you that they're on the side of we the people, that doesn't mention the senior executive service, the shadow government, what they call the deep state. So the executive order that we went through, basically realigning the deep state and showing that senior executive service members, because of multiple executive orders, can now be fired. I said, conservatively speaking, I have to wait and see. These are orders. But it looks as if these people, some of them that he started with, and now he is waiving the security clearance temporarily and letting his people in, because they wouldn't let it happen last time. He had no team. In 4 years, his team was never complete. So this time he's hitting the ground running with these people they must have spent the last 4 years. And I don't know who wrote these things up, but I'll tell you what. I haven't seen any of the geniuses you would expect to, with a mind capacity to write up these executive orders and to deliver the narrative that he gave to the World Economic Forum, to basically insult them the worst that anybody could possibly insult them. They were all down on their knees, okay? Before he got there, they admitted that they had been defeated by Trump.
Did. It was a separate video. I posted it over on Gab, and that's what they admitted. They have been defeated by Trump. So sad. Okay, but I want to go back to the Breitbart article where they actually mention senior executive service by name. And we've been harping on this since Trump got into the office. Stop saying deep state, shadow government. It has a name. This is who they are. We gave you a plum book. We told you who they were. I mean, Dinesh D'Souza is actually SES, Catherine Austin Fitts, all the way up to James Comey. They're all in this special group called Senior Executive Service. So then I had been following, when I first started this truth revelation research experience for me, when I was listening to this young man, James O'Keefe, who would go in and he was doing these exposés. And I thought, well, now that's really interesting. And I bought into it and had a very open mind. But about the time, maybe 5-6 years ago, when we were really busting chops on the SES, this guy, O'Keefe, decided he's going to do an exposé on who the deep state is. Oh, I was so excited because up to that point, I thought his stuff was good. Do you know, he deep dived this, at least that's what he claimed, and he never found the organization called SES. That told me he's a shill, so I don't listen to him. Total shill. Well, just guess what? After all this executive order on the SES comes out, here comes James O'Keefe, and he's going to tell you who the deep state is. I listened to most of the video, not all, but no. Do you think he named the SES? No, he didn't. So I'm telling you, you need to cat pounce this shill. Go into his comments and ask him why he's not talking about SES.
Now, you did a cat pounce, but it wasn't called that back then. It was like the monthly awareness, and it was on SES, where literally, and we had a lot of followers back then, a lot of subscribers, and people went out to every one of their favorite, whoever they thought the alternative news people were, and said, what do you say about SES? Not one of them would ever answer. I think somebody made one answer that was like so glib, they didn't even look it up in the Wikipedia to come up with that answer.
Well, I believe that Bill Hicks did have to mention the name once. But remember, they'll mention the name. They'll even invite us to interview with them on the video or audio, but then it's lost. We forgot to turn on the record button. Okay, but let's go back to the pressing thing that we just saw with Donald Trump going into the belly of the beast and bitch slapping them.
Oh, it was so beautiful. So, they ask about, well, what about the European Union? And he goes, oh, no, you guys are screwing us, hundreds of billions. And then he went into Canada. He was like, oh, no, man, no, I've already decided Canada can either be the 51st state or I'm going to tariff them to death. They will dissolve.
He's not going to support them.
Well, they can't exist without the $250 billion we give them a year. So he went right down the list, and when they ask about, some of them tried to insult him. I love that. In one answer, he says, "Well, I just did a deal. The head of the Prince of Saudi Arabia called me up, and he wants to do a deal. The newspaper, the MS and mainstream media says that it was a $450 billion confirmed deal that could go to $600 billion. So Trump refers to it as a $600 billion deal. But you know what? As right there, as he's talking, he goes, I think it should be more than that. I think it should be rounded off. Let's round it off to $1 trillion. Now, why is he doing that? Because as we predicted, when China when China and Russia came into Saudi Arabia to take over, where, we as the drillers of those wells, who kept most of the money at first in Saudi Arabia, turned it over to them. They went crazy with the money, just like the whole deal of turning over the oil fields to the nations that they were being that it was being fleeced by America, Britain, France, everybody. So they get their money. Now what do? A couple years ago, before Biden, right as soon as Biden came into power, immediately they said, okay, we're going to do our deal not with America anymore. We're going to basically sell exclusively to Russia and China. What happened in Iran? Same thing. Except the British and the French were there, and they were complaining about this, making international lawsuits against it. And so, because that's they develop those oil fields, they sell the parts to those oil rigs. We sell the parts to the ones in Saudi Arabia. Those were our oil fields. Okay, so what happens then? What did I tell everybody? You do a deal with China, you will get screwed. If you don't know that, then you shouldn't be doing any deals at all with them, because there's no deal you can do. Remember, Trump never signed his tariff deal with China. Remember that?
Where's Eric Schmidt? Did he get lost in China?
As I told you, he was poisoned, and now he has to lay low. And so Eric Schmidt, who created U.S. Digital Service, now it's going to run through Trump's White House. And so the weapon they created to spy on Trump and control the world, which, by the way, they partially accomplished and partially didn't. They're not very good at these things because these aren't intelligent people, just like, the top people at Davos, sitting on the stage there, World Economic Forum bankers, biggest bankers in the world, okay? Stupid. Listen to the way they speak. Listen to their disrespect. Listen to their inability to understand how Trump, who I call the unprecedented precedent. No, but there's never been a president like him. It is unprecedented. Now he's hyper unprecedented. And he's basically, really, he was still in power the last 4 years because he had to, in secret, show the world how bad it is, so that when he comes back and rectifies it, they'll realize that it had totally gone off kilter, that it was completely headed towards the abyss.
So that's what I heard in that little conversation with these two people on stage at the World Economic Forum, admitting that Donald Trump had won, because when you think of that, they live in a little bubble. They only hear what is sent up to them. And remember, all the truth channels are all censored, so they don't know what we know. And then Donald Trump's elected, and this is what shocked them, by such a big margin. And then he comes in within the first 2 days, he's knocking down the pillars that support the British Pilgrims Society operation in America. Well, how the hell did he know about that? I imagine the Brits are wee-weeing in their pants right now, because they are going to be crushed by America coming in from the west, and on the east, the Russians. And that leads to the point that you want to make, that Donald Trump knows that the British are the enemy.
Oh yeah, that he indicated that today, because he was asked about Ukraine. Okay, now I was going to go on, but make sure that you understand that when I said it was in print for the first time, when they said senior executive service, it was in quotation marks, and it was a complaint quoted by a State Department official, one of the top, who lost his job, not reassigned, not detailed, none of the nonsense they do in the SES, move them to another agency that they have as little about as the one that they just were head of. That's the way it works. Obama caused that. It's a rotation cycle so that nobody knows anything. But anyway, so that's the first time it's been mentioned in print. And so I was so excited, because basically what that means is, okay, he got our memorandums. Okay, he must have gotten our intelligence reports, because we've been saying these things for years. Or else he got people intelligent enough, because,
But get to the point about the Russians on the border of Ukraine.
Okay, so when asked about the war, he said, and I have said all along, every number they give you of lives lost is complete nonsense. So Ukraine right now says they've killed 400,000 Russians and only 40,000 of their people have died. Russia says that they admit that there may be, a couple 100,000 who have died because they had to call up another 500,000, and what happened to them? Trump says he's seen the casualties on both sides is in the millions, and he pleaded that we have to stop killing these young people on this killing field, and that he focused more on the death going on in Ukraine right now. And he said he can solve the problem. He just needs to meet with Putin, and it can be resolved. He says that Zelensky is ready to solve the problem now. Well, that's not what Zelensky just said. He just demanded of Biden money. Biden on his way out gave him the last pinch of millions that he had in slush funds, and all these are slush funds.
But he says it's the British brigade.
No.
Know what he said?
He said it wasn't Putin who started the war with Ukraine. Now, make sure you understand the language here, because there was the Donbass region that had already gone rebel, and Kiev had to kill 100,000 of them by bombarding them. Petroshenko and his predecessor, and then Zelensky himself. They killed their own people. That's when Russia came in after they had what he called a plebiscite. They had a vote, and they said they wanted to be with Russia, not with Ukraine, because they still speak Russian. So he's not talking about that. That had gone on for years before. He's talking about when Russia amassed their soldiers on the Ukrainian border for some reason, because Putin had come out and said that he knows that Ukraine's getting ready to attack. So what he said was Zelensky, he didn't, he was going to say who started the war. He said Putin did not start it. And then he said Zelensky, and then he backed off, and he talked about stupid people and stupid things and other actions. That was the British commandos who went into Russia and into Belarus and blew up the pipeline, as I've said all along. So that means that Trump knows that the British are the provocateurs of this war. And he also knows that he would have stood behind the Donbass region and not for any reason let the breadbasket of Ukraine, and basically then of Western territories, Russia and otherwise, that was their breadbasket. That's where the coal came from. That's where they still have oil fields that are untapped. 2 huge oil fields are not even tapped there. Why? Because Hunter Biden went there, got on the board to control where the oil went, and made sure that no oil was dug, but that they just charged a huge amount for the 4 pipelines going across Ukraine, bringing the oil from Russia and through Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan into. It was like 68% of the oil of Europe was coming from Russia. So when one of the idiots made a question to Trump, there were 3 stupid assumptions that were put into actually an attitude of an accusation. And Trump corrected him. And he goes, no, I don't believe that. That's wrong. It's going to go up. It's not going to go down. That's all he said about this guy's speculation on what Trump was going.
The price of gas, LNG.
Yeah, he didn't address the fact that we now have a national emergency in America, and then Trump pointed out that we had more oil. We've always had more oil than everyone, and gas. So, we will. And so then the European banker asked can we please have some in Europe? And Trump said, yeah, no problem. So these people were begging at his feet. They were groveling. They were shining his shoes. But they're still arrogant, murderous, banking. What did I used to call them? They're
brokers.
Banksters and brokers, but they're banksters.
Yes.
Okay, these are the economic mafia. And now inside of America, the British implantation of an aristocracy that can't be fired, the unelected career professionals. So here's this SES guy saying, in this article, me and my friends, and he literally says, me and my career senior executive service friends are very upset. Yeah, I bet you all are. Because 8,000 of them were appointed during Obama's time. He fired 4,000, and then all of them were cleared, not through security clearance, through a company that Hillary Clinton started where she made money bringing in Pakistanis and other strange people who were actually spies to put in SES right at the top of the federal government. And now they're mad that Trump gave a temporary security clearance to a bunch of his people. Well, here's the deal. The Principals Committee. You don't have to have any clearance to be on it. So la-dee-da.
Now, I know the other day you were giving high praise to Rand Paul, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but really, he is such a low information congressperson. Do you know that today there was a post that he is just talking about Eric CIA Ramella? You got to be kidding me. And he's just noticing that he was censored when he tried to post this stuff. Rand, are you that far behind? Seriously. Now, Katz, I want this to give you courage. You have been to the AIM School of Truth for many years. You've seen the truth. You've seen the research in front of you. Don't let these scumbags put a blindfold on you and walk you down their narrative. Wake up and point out that they are wrong. So, for example, let's talk about John Roberts and the FISA courts that he was overseeing, where the FISA corruption started right there with the Russia collusion hoax. Who's going to call out John Roberts, who was holding Facebook stock while he ruled on the Leader case and ruled against Leader? And what about his wife, the ugly? I mean, have you seen this woman? She's so incredibly ugly. And she is the recruiter for the Senior Executive Service, the wife of the Supreme Court. Now, cats know this. Don't pause. Don't feel timid. You call out the truth and make these people uncomfortable, because we have a country to save. Now, as far as our European friends, especially our English friends, we know that you, the people, are being trampled on by your tyrannical EU and monarchy in the UK. We stand with you. Trump will stand with you too, but you got to start pushing back on these thugs and politicians that are creating your migration nightmare and bringing thugs into your community, and again, on and on. On and on. Stand up now. You know the truth. Stand up and start fighting.
Okay, now we could go down a list of about 20 things that just happened the last day, but there's
Talk about the ocean collapse.
Oh, we'll talk about that because that's going to get you, Brits. So sorry, you climate.
Yes.
Okay, don't get me started on that yet. Okay, you know the planes that. One of the last things Biden did is give asylum to 3 more countries that are our enemies to allow people in before he left office. Those planes, he was flying military planes over, picking up these supposed refugees from Afghanistan and other crazy places and bringing them back to America. Oh, wait, by the way, Trump's getting back the equipment that was left in Afghanistan, the $8 billion. He's taking it back. He already said that, and that really upset them. He also is raising NATO to 5%, not 3%. Why? When they don't pay the 5%, he's getting us out of NATO. Mark my words. I'm going to give him a couple months on that one. I was going to give him a couple weeks, see if he just took us out of NATO. Best thing he could possibly do, take us out of NATO first. Russia, Russia, Russia. That's what NATO is. Complete nonsense. That battle was started by the British, like all battles in the modern time, if you look closely, the false flags. So anyway, those planes are now taking 1,500 troops to the border. Now, let's put this in perspective. 1,500 troops ain't very many. Oh, that's right. Biden already broke the Posse Comitatus Act of 19, whatever it was, or whenever it was a really old act, that the president can't use U.S. military inside of our domestic borders. Well, people didn't even hardly get upset about that, though in the old days they would have fried him alive for that. 1,500 got on the same planes that were bringing refugees from our enemy countries into America. False refugees, not vetted, nothing, no, vaccinations, absolutely carrying illness, blah, blah, blah. When they got there, oh yeah, that's right, everyone forgot. 2,500 soldiers were already there because Biden sent them down not to secure the border, but to open the border and help the migrants across. He used our military, Biden did, and Kamala Harris, the border czar, and that evil person who should be put in jail for for supposedly securing our border. Anyway, the point is that there's actually, 4,000 troops there, plus I said when they bring in the Air Force to defend the border war, there's a border war, okay? At least 1 million on their side that we have seen in the newspaper reported in mass graves, okay? There have been millions of people who have died crossing the border, and millions of Americans have died from the poison fentanyl, which is Chinese-made, sometimes 100 stronger than a normal fentanyl pill. A person takes it, they die. Okay, not to mention the human slavery. Not to mention that the cartels, the four major on the border, are paid for every person who comes across. Not to mention that the coyotes who bring these people across work for the cartels. Not to mention that Mexico itself is almost as corrupt as Ukraine, and four cartel groups rule Mexico. And we don't need that. We need to secure the border. They can do what they want, but we're not going to join with Mexico, and I don't recommend you join with Canada, because then you join with Britain, and we just need to sever all ties with Britain, with Serco in the patent office, with Serco in our military, and basically using their systems of law, which they're the best at lawfare. That's why Robert Mueller's grand jury investigation was a cover-up. It's a Star Chamber fake monkey trial. It's nothing. It's a way to hide evidence, and that's what they used on Trump. They even brought in a guy from Netherlands, Jack Smith, to try Trump. Okay, what else is Trump doing? So he just raised the $600 billion from Saudi Arabia to a trillion. That means he's going to go after the UAE for what we do for them. And he's going to go after all those Arab countries. Because why? We don't need their damn oil anymore. We have plenty. He said drill, 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 national emergency. Because, and he's mentioned again and again, now that he's called national emergencies in these different areas, and with reinstating some previous executive orders, as well as he said today at the World Economic Forum that he was going to ask Congress to simply go back to his previous tax cuts, which caused us to have the strongest economy in history. He's not exaggerating when he says that. Tax cuts for corporations and Americans, and all kinds of things that he did before. And he can just go back to what he'd already done. Now, what else has he done? Of course, he got the hostages freed, and he's got Bibi in his pocket because he knows Bibi is guilty for his deals with Genie Oil in the Golan Heights and in the Mediterranean basin. So Trump has all the dirt on all these people. Why? Because in the 4 years that he was out, Mar-a-Lago, and people have said this, and Tyler has said it to me, and Betsy now is, she picked up her AR-15 and told me, no, Mar-a-Lago was nothing more than the White House in exile, but he was still in power, and everything Biden did will be negated. It will be rescinded. Well, that is very possible. And when did you see a president in both the Senate and the House of one party at a time with supposedly the most unpopular president in human history? No, incorrect. He's the most popular. And I'll tell you why. Because those people on the stage asking Trump questions at the World Economic Forum, they were crying.
Yeah, a bunch of weenies. What gave it away for me is when all of these world leaders were showing up in Mar-a-Lago meeting with Trump, and some of them would even meet with Trump before they would go to D.C., and the Democrats were so desperate to take out Trump, you would think that they would use the Logan Act, but they never did. So that told me Trump is the president, and it always has been. But we'll wait for that unfolding. In the meantime, there is something, because, I listen to things, and then I tune in my other super sensible perceptions and see other things. So when Trump is talking about this AI deal with Ellison and the two little grunts that are with him, but anyway, $500 billion, that's a big deal, and other countries want to get in on it. But this takes a lot of electricity to run that's AI computing, and he said that they would be able to build utility facilities right next door to where they're doing their computations, so that it wasn't a drain on our energy grid. Well, that's a good thing. But then I thought, yeah, go ahead and let them build the energy centers that we need to support our grid. And when this AI thing kind of loses its novelty and goes away, because there's a lot of problems with this AI, and also about its legal structure. Once again, they're putting their technology on top of stolen technology from Michael McKibben and Leader Technologies, and I am not going to stop talking about this until that right is corrected. And I want to see the master license of all social networking in the hands of we the people. And as far as Europe goes, well, they got the message. Big Daddy is in charge now, and we aren't going to be so free in handing out money to support their evil agenda. Well, I don't want to make this video too long, so we're going to cut it off here, and the rest of our discussion is on the second video, the one following this one.